The auctioneer's gavel struck wood with a sound that cracked through the dusty Santa Fe plaza like a rifle shot. And Rebecca Everly stood on the platform with her hands bound before her, unable to scream the terror clawing up her throat, because she had never spoken a single word in all her 20 years of life. The August sun beat down mercilessly on the New Mexico territory in 1878, turning the adobe buildings into ovens, and the packed dirt square into a shimmering haze where men gathered with cruel eyes and crueler intentions. Inspecting the merchandise her uncle had dragged 300 miles to sell like she was nothing more than a horse or a piece of furniture. She had tried to run twice during the journey from Colorado, but her Uncle Thomas had caught her both times, his meaty fists leaving bruises that still yellowed her ribs beneath the thin cotton dress they had forced her into for the auction. Her mother had died 2 months ago, the only person who had ever truly understood Rebecca's silence, who had learned to read the expressions in her green eyes and the subtle movements of her hands. Her mother had protected her, loved her, taught her to read and write when no one else believed she was capable of learning. Then the fever had taken her mother in less than a week, and Thomas Everly had shown up at their little homestead with papers claiming he owned everything, including Rebecca herself. The auctioneer droned on about her qualities, calling her docile and obedient, too stupid to cause trouble, good for cooking and cleaning and bearing children. Rebecca felt tears burning behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. She would not give these men the satisfaction of seeing her break. Instead, she lifted her chin and stared out at the crowd with as much defiance as she could muster, her dark auburn hair falling loose around her shoulders because they had taken even her pins and ribbons. Most of the men leering at her were old, their bellies straining against their belts, their teeth brown with tobacco. But near the back of the crowd stood a younger man who was not looking at her the way the others did. He was tall and lean, maybe 25 years old, with sun-darkened skin and dark hair that needed cutting, dressed in worn denim and a dusty blue shirt with a bandana tied loosely around his neck. His eyes were an unusual shade of gray-blue, like storm clouds, and when their gazes met, Rebecca saw something that made her breath catch. Not pity exactly, but recognition, as if he understood what it meant to be treated as less than human. The bidding started low. Her uncle had set the opening price at $50, and several men raised their hands immediately. Rebecca watched the numbers climb, feeling sicker with each increment. $75, $100, $125. The old man with the tobacco-stained teeth seemed determined to win, his piggy eyes roaming over her body in a way that made her skin crawl. Then the cowboy in the back raised his hand. $200. The crowd went silent. It was an outrageous sum for a woman who could not speak, more than most men paid for a trained horse. The auctioneer's eyes widened with greedy delight. 200 from the gentleman in back. Do I hear 225? The old man scowled, clearly calculating whether she was worth that much. Rebecca held her breath, her heart hammering against her ribs. She did not know this cowboy, had no reason to trust him, but something in his steady gaze made her hope he would win. 210, the old man finally called out. 250, the cowboy countered immediately, his voice calm and firm. The old man spat into the dirt and waved his hand dismissively, backing out of the bidding. No one else spoke up. The auctioneer called for more bids twice before bringing down his gavel with a triumphant crack. Sold to the gentleman for $250. Rebecca's knees nearly gave out. Her uncle pushed through the crowd to collect his money, not even glancing at her as he pocketed the bills the cowboy counted out with careful precision. The cowboy approached the platform and the auctioneer unlocked the rope binding her wrists, shoving her forward. She stumbled and the cowboy caught her elbow, his touch surprisingly gentle. "Easy," he said quietly. "I am not going to hurt you." She searched his face for signs of deception but found none. Up close, she could see the weathered lines around his eyes, the shadow of stubble on his jaw, the way he deliberately kept his body angled away from her, giving her space. He released her elbow as soon as she was steady. "My name is Cole Dawson," he said. "I have a ranch about 10 miles north of here. Can you walk that far, or should I rent a wagon?" Rebecca hesitated, then pointed at her feet and mimed walking. She had walked much farther during the forced journey from Colorado. Cole nodded as if this was a perfectly normal form of communication. "Walking it is. We will stop if you need rest." He gestured toward the edge of the plaza where a large gray horse waited, tied to a hitching post. "That is Sterling. He is gentle as a lamb. You can ride him if you get tired." She followed him through the dispersing crowd, hyper-aware of the stares and whispers trailing them. Her uncle had already disappeared, probably heading straight for the nearest saloon to drink away his blood money. Good riddance. She hoped she would never see him again. Cole untied Sterling and led the horse by the reins as they started walking north out of Santa Fe. The afternoon sun was brutal, but a slight breeze offered occasional relief. Cole did not try to make conversation, seeming content with the silence, which Rebecca appreciated. She was exhausted, emotionally and physically, and the idea of trying to communicate with gestures and expressions felt overwhelming right now. They walked for more than an hour before Cole stopped near a cluster of juniper trees that offered some shade. "We should rest," he said, pulling a canteen from his saddlebag and offering it to her. "Drink as much as you need." Rebecca took the canteen gratefully, the water cool and sweet against her parched throat. She drank deeply, then wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and returned the canteen. Cole drank as well, then poured some water into his hat for Sterling. "I suppose you have questions," Cole said, settling down in the shade and gesturing for her to sit. "About why I bought you what I expect." Rebecca sat, keeping a careful distance between them, and nodded. She did have questions, hundreds of them, but no way to ask. Cole seemed to understand. "I am going to talk and you can nod or shake your head, all right." He waited for her nod before continuing. "I have a small ranch, about 300 acres. I run cattle and breed horses. It is just me and my foreman, an older fellow named Samuel who has been with me since the beginning. We could use help with cooking and general upkeep of the house, but that is not why I bought you." Rebecca frowned, confused. If he did not need a servant, then what did he want? Cole met her eyes directly. "I bought you because I know what it is like when people think you are worthless. I was born in Kansas and my mother was part Cherokee. My father was white, and when he died, his family wanted nothing to do with us. We were trash to them, less than human. My mother worked herself to death trying to keep us fed and clothed. I was 16 when she passed." Understanding bloomed in Rebecca's chest. He had recognized himself in her. "I came to New Mexico territory 5 years ago with nothing but the clothes on my back and a determination to make something of myself," Cole continued. "I worked every job I could find, saved every penny, and eventually bought some land. It is not much, but it is mine. And I thought maybe you would want a chance to have something that is yours too." Rebecca stared at him, her throat tight with emotions she could not name. This stranger had just paid a fortune for her freedom. It seemed impossible, too good to be true. "Here is what I am proposing," Cole said. "You come to the ranch, help with the cooking and such if you are willing, and in return, you get room and board and safety. No one will touch you or hurt you or force you to do anything you do not want to do. When you are ready, if you want to leave and make your own way, I will give you enough money to get started wherever you want to go. It was the most generous offer anyone had ever made her. Rebecca felt tears spilling down her cheeks before she could stop them, and she quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. "Hey," Cole said softly, "you have been through something terrible today. You are allowed to cry." But Rebecca shook her head. She had cried enough over the past 2 months, mourning her mother, enduring her uncle's cruelty. She was done crying. She pointed at Cole, then at herself, then pressed both hands over her heart in a gesture she hoped conveyed gratitude. Cole's expression softened. "You are welcome. Come on, we should keep moving. The ranch is still a good ways off." They walked through the afternoon, the landscape gradually shifting from the dusty outskirts of Santa Fe to rolling hills dotted with piñon pines and juniper. Cole pointed out landmarks as they went, telling her about the area, the wildlife, the way the seasons changed the colors of the mountains in the distance. He had a pleasant voice, Rebecca thought, deep and steady, and he spoke to her like she was a person, not a burden or an object. The sun was sinking toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple when they finally crested a rise and Cole pointed ahead. "There it is, home." The ranch spread out in a small valley, protected by hills on 3 sides. The main house was adobe with a wooden porch, modest but well-maintained. Behind it stood a barn, a corral with several horses and various outbuildings. It looked peaceful, Rebecca thought, safe. As they approached, an older man with silver hair and a weather-beaten face emerged from the barn, his eyes widening when he saw Rebecca. "Cole, what is this?" "Samuel, this is Rebecca," Cole said. "She is going to be staying with us for a while." "Rebecca, this is Samuel Cooper, my foreman and the only reason this ranch has not fallen apart." Samuel studied Rebecca with shrewd brown eyes, but his expression was kind. "Miss Rebecca," he said, tipping his hat. "Welcome. Though I got to say, Cole, you might have warned me we were having company." "The house is a mess." "The house is always a mess," Cole said, but there was affection in his voice. "We will manage. Can you take care of Sterling? I want to get Rebecca settled." "Sure thing." Samuel took Sterling's reins, nodding at Rebecca again. "Good to have another civilized person around here, miss. Maybe you can teach this boy some manners." Rebecca felt a small smile tug at her lips, the first in weeks. She liked Samuel already. Cole led her to the house, pushing open the door to reveal a main room with a stone fireplace, a rough wooden table, a few chairs, and shelves lined with books and various supplies. It was indeed messy, with dishes piled in a wash basin and dust coating most surfaces, but it also felt lived in and comfortable. "This is the main room," Cole said. "Kitchen area is over there. My room is through that door, and Samuel has a room in the barn because he says the horses are better company than I am. There is another bedroom back here that you can have." He led her through a doorway to a small room with a bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out over the hills. The bed had a real mattress and clean sheets, and Rebecca nearly wept again at the sight of it. She had spent the journey from Colorado sleeping on the ground, bound and watched like a prisoner. "It is not fancy," Cole said, sounding almost apologetic, "but it is yours. There is a lock on the inside of the door if that makes you feel safer." Rebecca turned to him and deliberately held out her hand. He looked surprised but shook it, his palm warm and calloused against hers. She squeezed his hand gently, trying to communicate everything she could not say. "Thank you. I trust you. I am grateful beyond words." Cole seemed to understand. "Get some rest. I will put together some supper. We usually eat pretty simple around here, but I will do my best." After he left, Rebecca sank down onto the bed, her whole body trembling with relief and exhaustion. She was free. Not truly free, not in any legal sense, but free enough, safe enough. For the first time since her mother's death, she felt like she could breathe. She must have dozed off because the next thing she knew, Cole was knocking gently on her door frame. "Rebecca, supper is ready if you are hungry." She was starving, she realized. Her uncle had barely fed her during the journey. She stood and followed Cole to the main room where he had set out plates of beans, cornbread, and fried salt pork. Samuel was already seated, and he stood when she entered, pulling out a chair for her. "Thank you," she mouthed, knowing no sound would come. The meal was simple but delicious, and Rebecca ate ravenously while Cole and Samuel discussed ranch business. They seemed to have forgotten she was there, which suited her fine. She was content to listen, to observe, to slowly let the terror of the day drain away. After supper, Samuel excused himself to check on the horses, leaving Rebecca and Cole alone. Cole started gathering the dishes, and Rebecca immediately stood to help. "You do not have to do that tonight," Cole said. "You have had a long day." But Rebecca shook her head and pointed at the dishes, then at herself. She wanted to help, needed to feel useful to earn her place here. Cole studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right, I will wash you dry." They worked in companionable silence, falling into an easy rhythm. Rebecca noticed that Cole was careful not to stand too close, not to brush against her accidentally, giving her the physical space she needed. It was thoughtful in a way that made her chest ache. When had anyone last been thoughtful toward her? When the dishes were done, Cole showed her where everything was stored, where the well was for water, where the privy stood. "If you need anything in the night, do not hesitate to wake me," he said. "And remember, your door has a lock." Rebecca nodded. She went to her room, closed the door, and turned the lock with a satisfying click. Then she lay down on the bed, still fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling as darkness fell outside her window. She could hear Cole moving around in the main room, the creak of floorboards, the rustle of papers. Eventually, his door closed, and the house fell silent except for the wind outside and the distant howl of a coyote. Rebecca closed her eyes and, for the first time in 2 months, slept without nightmares. The next days fell into a pattern. Rebecca woke early, helped prepare breakfast, cleaned the house while Cole and Samuel worked outside with the cattle and horses, then prepared the midday meal and supper. The work was not difficult, and both men were appreciative of her efforts, though Cole,